Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. What a weekend it's been, eh? You couldn't really have scripted it any better. There's just something that hits a little bit sweeter about last-minute winners, and plural even in this one, isn't there, at the same time? Liverpool are 6 points clear at the top of the league. They have a game in hand, and French visitors are in town tomorrow. There's plenty to talk about and plenty to analyse. And here to join me as ever is the renowned and the respected David Lynch, who I'm guessing came back from the open training session, having a little look at the Reds this morning.
Yeah, just seeing how they're kind of shaping up, and it just shows you, doesn't it? It's so relentless, isn't it? Because you're still buzzing after the Brentford game and how that went, but for the team, they just can't afford to focus on it too long because it's straight into training for this one and get prepared for a totally different test at Anfield. So yeah, it just sort of is evidence of the relentlessness of the season, I guess.
Yeah, we've got to move on quickly. But before we finally move on, we've got to talk about it. Because, I mean, the finish, the game, everything. I mean, just a buzz that all Reds have had all weekend. I've got to ask you, David, as a patch journalist, surely patch journalists buzz off those type of endings still, just for writing things anyway.
Yeah, it's much better when they're winning. We kind of spoke about this, but it's when you're in it and you're that involved, and obviously I think it's not a secret that a lot of us are supporters of Liverpool, but when you're that close to it as well, and you kind of your working life revolves around it. Sometimes when you're in a little bit of a slump, and I know people haven't taken recent results particularly well, and I think the January window being open heightens things a lot. Then you kind of, you're spending your days kind of looking through social media comments or for me, my YouTube comments or whatever tweets I'm getting. And when you're in that kind of slump, it's a lot of negativity and you kind of try and brush it off, but it's hard to do that a lot of the time. And so, in the kind of final moments of that game, you're thinking, oh God, here we go again. I'm going to have to try and find some positives, try and explain this and I think there were positives there to be taken, even if they drop points, but it's not going to be kind of taken in that way, and there's going to be a massive negativity. So it is a huge relief, to be honest, when we go on and win it like that, because it's much nicer to write about a winning team, to talk about it, and you maybe don't have to see that negativity as much. So maybe I shouldn't kind of let that stuff affect me, but I think you're only human, and it's hard not to. So yeah, I was as pleased as anyone really when the goals went in.
Yeah, I think part of it as a Liverpool fan, it's okay to say you want the title that bad. And also there's almost the PTSD element of what's happened with Manchester City and the points totals and being caught and all those types of things. So it does go into it so much. But let's start talking about the weekend. And we're actually going to start with a clip from the main man himself, Arne Slot, who I think you're going to like this one, David, because he addresses journalists when he talks about this as well.
If you look at simple about amount of chances created, and I think you all are a bit aware of the XG. Is that something familiar for you? Now, do me a favor and look back at our United game and see what the XG of both teams were, and do this against Forest and do this today. Then you will probably see that there's nothing changed with us between now and the start of the season or the first half of the season.
Well, Arne Slot told you to look at the XG as a journalist collective. And I think it's fair to say, if you take a look at that and the stats for everything, we battered Brentford, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing. This was going to be kind of, if it had been 3 draws on the bounce, is the argument I would have made, and the argument why, when we've been doing these podcasts, I've remained very kind of upbeat about Liverpool and felt that this kind of little blip they were in, they were probably going to pretty quickly come out, because those metrics, is particularly over, maybe game to game, they don't give you the full picture, but over a long period of time, they give you a good idea of how a team is performing. And it's interesting that the manager kind of mentions that, clearly a lot more managers and head coaches are using that metric. But he's right, is that, even if they come away with a draw in this one, you'd still say it's yet another game where they battered the opposition on XG. If you keep doing that, there was a phrase that Josh Williams, who I think his work is fantastic, he used on his podcast last week, which is that basically Liverpool are putting the probability in their favour constantly. And if you do that, then you will win football matches eventually. And obviously it takes till really late in this one to do it. But they do eventually get over the line. But it was fully deserved. And the fact is, in the games prior to that, they would have deserved to win. Forest, that last half hour in particular, they were absolutely hammering the door down and just couldn't get that second goal. Manchester United, I think their level of performance at Anfield, I thought they were quite good. But I think it's been overstated to almost that they dominated the game and were very unlucky to be the ones who didn't win in the end. That isn't true. They do have that Maguire chance at the end. But the reality is, and the managers pointed this out, Liverpool have 4 or 5 chances to win it before that. So it's, on the balance of chances is always in Liverpool's favour in these recent results. And it has been in the 2 draws. It would have still been the same if this had ended in a 3rd draw. And so you always know at some point that's going to turn. So the underlying level of performance has remained consistent, as he said, and some things have kind of gone against Liverpool. E.g., I've been speaking a lot about kind of goals going in against them with deflections and a little bit of unluckiness around opposition finishing. Chris Wood getting one shot in the box and it going in the back of the net. I mean, great finish, but you just need a bit of luck at times. And so it did feel in this game that Liverpool, that luck was going to continue to evade them until finally they get a little bit of it at the end and fully make the most of it. And I think the fact is now the job is to just continue performing in this way. And if you keep doing that, you'll actually won't be last minute winners. You'll probably get a few handsome wins in this run keeping up. So it's good to hear the manager kind of using that as a measure and knowing and using it to keep the players calm and saying, look, our underlying performance is still very, very good here. Don't worry about it. And he was absolutely right to say that. And I think you and I have discussed that a lot. So yeah, I think he was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, he got it absolutely spot on in this one. And we've got to talk about the star of the show. We've got it spot on twice. Darwin Nunez, a double salvo. And it probably falls to Harvey Elliott to give a little snippet on Darwin Nunez and what he brings to the team here.
English. We try and have a laugh and a giggle with him, but, he's a great guy. And his hunger and desire on the pitch is, you can't fault him, as you can see each and every.
Can't fault his hunger and desire. And you can't fault that, like Newcastle, Forest, and now this one, Darwin Nunez likes a late winner, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I just think, again, we've been critical on this channel of him and said that there are issues with his game in general. I don't think that he's going to be a long-term option for Liverpool, and I kind of completely stand by that. But we said his job is in this season is to keep going, is to be there for moments, whether that's getting a late winner or coming on as a sub to give someone rest or scoring goals in the cups where he's likely to get starts. That is his job. And it really does not get better than coming on that late in the game and scoring 2 to claim 3 points. It's exactly what you kind of dream of that you're going to get from him, because we know we're not going to get that consistent level of world-class number 9 performance. He just doesn't have that in him. But I'm absolutely fine with, if this is his job till the end of the season, popping up against Brentford and doing this, and as he has done in other games in the past for Liverpool. You just hope he's got a couple more of these little winners in him and big moments over the remainder of this season. That would be very handy. But yeah, you cannot knock the mentality and the composure in those moments, which we know he has lacked from time to time. But he's still got that capability to pop up with a big moment. So yeah, good on him and absolutely brilliant to see that.
Yeah, and even the second one, you could see almost the going through the veins with the touch and the finish into the roof of the net. And the evidence we've got shows us he tends to be a little bit of a streaky player, for want of a better phrase. Why he is confident and looks that way, would you be keeping him in the lineup?
I don't know about that. I mean, as soon as Jota's fit, I think he has to be kind of starting forward. I don't think there's any kind of debate around that. I think you can bring Nunez in from time to time, but like I say, I almost don't know if he's that kind of confidence player you can ride, or that I still think too many of the issues in his game will pop up over a long run of games. So, but he doesn't have to be that. There's Luis Diaz can play that centre forward role. You've got Diogo Jota, hopefully will be back soon from injury, and he's a very, very good option there. You don't need too much from Nunez. You don't need a run of 10 games starting from him. But what you do need is when he does come in, and if that's a sub or it is a start in the cups or whatever, is for him to provide moments, and he absolutely did that at the weekend. So that's all I kind of hope we see more of from him.
Yeah, and it might be coming off the bench. It might be moments, as you put it, just now and again. But we're going to need him between now and the end of the season. And you did talk about moments that I think that the sub sort of punctuated this game, how it ended. We're talking about the likes of Elliott, Chiesa, Nunez obviously coming on. So probably it's worth just hearing what Harvey Elliott was asked about the sub situation after the game.
He said so many people have influenced the game from the bench, and if they haven't played, and today's one of them games. Darwin comes on, scores 2, and it's a situation. I think it shows to everyone that no matter what, you need to be ready, because the chances will come, and you just need to take them like today.
It's been an interesting one this season. We've talked about it quite a bit. It's felt like a large part of the season he's not almost trusted some of that supporting cast, like Harvey Elliott, Endo, Chiesa, Nunez, etc. Did you feel like this one was kind of an affirmation for them, like, trust us, get us on the pitch, we can make things happen?
Yeah, a huge moment for them, particularly with Elliott, because I think it's been a discussion point among supporters, hasn't it, really, that this guy is so good late in games at unlocking a really deep defence and kind of picking holes in it. Just that the way he drifts into that kind of right half space, and just either he can just play it out to make sure that Trent's got enough space to whip in across from the right, or he comes in and finds a little link up with Salah, or he finds a link up with Trent on the inside rather than the outside. He's just really, really good at finding the space, and you cannot get a better example, really, of how good he is in those moments than what he does around that first goal. It's just exactly what you want him there for. Perfect way to pass. Sees when it opens up, has the patience and the coolness to see it and pull it off in that moment. That is him all over. And it's interesting, isn't it, that Slot hasn't felt that or seen it enough in training to think that he wants to try this. But you're going to have no better evidence than him coming on and doing it in a game like this. So I really hope that gives him a little boost in the manager's eyes, and kind of shows that what he can do, and makes the point that he should be involved more. And kind of similarly with Chiesa as well, who was definitely involved as well, and looked pretty dangerous when he came on. I hope it's a big moment for both of those, because I think they deserve it. They've been very patient. They've got themselves fit and they're ready. And they're two quality players. With Chiesa, from what we've seen so far, I think you can see the quality there, and we know it with Harvey Elliott, just how good he is. So yeah, I really do hope that leads to more for both of them, because seeing Slot use a bit more of his squad would be good as well, because it's a lot of games here in Liverpool at the moment trying to win 4 trophies. So to have 2 players of that quality involved more frequently, I think would be massively helpful.
Yeah, it did feel like a step forward for quite a few on Saturday. And one player that ever since United has come under the microscope, he was absolutely brilliant again in this one, Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's so strange. There was that thing, I know you'll have seen it on the overlap, where again, with no reference, no stats, no nothing, they're just battering Trent, but not looking at his recent form since United. He was brilliant in this one, wasn't he?
Yeah, that overlap clip, it really annoyed me, to be honest, because I just... shut up about it. Like, even if you think that, and you think you won the debate, and you think you're absolutely right, and this guy who's going to win the league this season, by the way, might win the Champions League, is wanted by Real Madrid and could be rocking up there next season. This guy, you think is absolutely rubbish. Okay, maybe you've won the debate. Maybe you can go on, you can go and think that. But why does anyone who watches that content want to hear that debate again? Should we sit there and do, who was better, Messi and Ronaldo again? And should we just go through the old hits? It's so boring that I can't believe they don't even want to discuss it. And that is never mind the fact that, like I say, he's won every honour imaginable, so he must be pretty good. Liverpool have done well to carry him if he's completely terrible. And I acknowledge that he was poor in that United game. For me, it's the poorest I've seen him play for Liverpool, to be honest. I thought it was his weakest game ever since coming into the side. But as you say, there's no acknowledgement of the fact he was sensational, since you will not hear anything outside of kind of the Liverpool bubble, where we will talk about it definitely, because we have a bit more of a focus on it, about how good he was against Brentford. And that is not just what he contributes on the ball and setting up the goal that wins the game for Liverpool. He's phenomenal off it, and a big part of Liverpool keeping a clean sheet in that game. But it will not get acknowledged, as it doesn't get acknowledged when he has a steady defensive performance, which, by the way, is 7 or 8 times out of 10 across the games in the season, because Liverpool could not carry someone who was a liability. They just couldn't, and he couldn't be this good if he was. So, I find it maddening, really, that debate is still seen as a valid talking point and not completely boring. But also that he just doesn't get the credit he deserves when he does defend well, which is most of the games that he plays for Liverpool. So I thought he was so good at everything he did on the ball that you almost take as a given, even though it's so special. But covering off the counters, the amounts of times he kind of was across to nip the ball off Wiss's toes or Mbuemo, just really smart anticipation, or getting there for a header, getting the ball away. He was really good defensively, and a big part of Liverpool limiting Brentford to hardly anything, really. Fair play to him for his reaction to the United game, and he's kind of shoved a lot of words down a lot of throats, really, but maybe not as well, because people won't acknowledge it, the ones who don't want to know, or they don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's strange. Even when the 2 times that they were countering on us, Brentford, the 2 things I like to see was Trent was chasing full pelt back and even nicked one in as well. He was working hard throughout this game, and obviously he gets a brilliant assist at the same time. But it seems that not everyone wants to talk about the defensive element. And the other 2 that we should talk about in the defence, I mean, Konate hasn't been fully fit. We've said that in the last few games, but it just felt like he was back to his best. And him and Van Dijk were immense in this one, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely sensational. I think you're right about Konate. I think we're kind of seeing him now. He's getting there. The run of games is really helping him out. So he just seems to be back to his best, because at times, as good as Trent was, you have to, if you want to get the best out of him, you have to kind of leave big spaces behind him, and so that asks a lot of Konate to come and fill that. But he's so good at it, and you think at the pace and the quality of those 2 that Brentford have got in attack, they are so dangerous. But Konate just swept up so much, and he gets pulled into positions that you'd rather a fullback be in, really, but he's really comfortable there. Doesn't look like he can get beat for pace or strength. So yeah, just he was phenomenal. And I'm not even mentioning Van Dijk, which is it's ridiculous, because we are just so used to it now. This is just what he does. This is the level he plays at, and he's just as good, better probably. He is better. He's better than everybody at what he does. And those 2, the way that Liverpool had to defend, and the way, particularly in the second half, as they're pushing for a goal, the positioning of the centre halves is outrageous, how kind of high up the pitch they are, leaving themselves so much to do. But they can do that because they know they can defend those big spaces as well, and that's because they're both world-class defenders. So yeah, just a joy to watch them 2 in tandem, really. And as much as Liverpool, I like Quansah a lot. I think Joe Gomez is fantastic. It'd be really helpful to keep these 2 fit as a pairing, because they're just we're possibly the best pairing in the world at the moment as centre-backs.
Yeah, it does feel like if Liverpool are going to have a successful season, and trying not to be greasy, but if there is multiple things on the horizon, you're going to need these 2 fit all season, no 2 ways about it. And I suppose that the thing I did want to ask you, because there's a few candidates, and the great thing is there's a few candidates from our team as well. But if the season was to end right now, VVD Player of the Year for you?
I still think you'd be hard pushed to say it's not Mo Salah, to be honest. Just because, and it's harsh on Van Dijk. He's unbelievable, isn't he? And he is one of the best players in the world, no question. But I always come back to the fact that the hardest thing to do in football is scoring goals and creating them. And you've got someone in your team who's doing that at the level of arguably the best player in the world, then you've probably got to say that it's him. But I mean, it's great how much competition there is for that kind of title, because so many are playing well across the squad, and it's just so many good performances. So it's a nice kind of difficult decision to have, but for me at the moment, maybe Salah would edge it.
Interesting. Yeah, people will be split on that. Probably those are the 2 top candidates. And when we talk about the award, it always comes down to usually who's been the most successful team. Naturally, we understand that. And these winners, I'm calling them winners, obviously the double Darwin goals, Did this feel for you like one of those moments? And we've talked about them before, like when Mane gets the late header at Villa, when Salah scores against United and the top comes off, and obviously it rings round Anfield. It's not quite sort of a full hand on the title, but it felt like a few fingers were touching it by the end of this, didn't it?
Yeah, it did feel really significant. I mean, the Villa one we speak about sometimes because the huge significance there was that kind of it made sure as well that Liverpool could go 8 points clear of City by beating them, which after they did that as well, it almost felt like the title was done that season. So that's what made that really a hugely significant moment for Liverpool because of how it left the table going into that City game. And it would have been a completely different complexion if they lost that game. Obviously, then they could have been 2 points ahead of City going into that Anfield game, could then have even surrendered the lead in the Premier League. So you just go from one end of the scale to the other. It is massively significant. And for Liverpool, obviously coming into this, 2 draws on the bounce, fans are feeling quite negative, or certainly the ones who are in my social media mentions are kind of losing the bottle a little bit. And, maybe that's transmit to the players a little bit if that happens. If you drop points again in this, you start to question things about the team. And then maybe Arsenal go and beat Aston Villa and they close the gap again and it's game on. The title race is a real title race now. Instead, what happens is Liverpool do that. They deal this huge mental blow to Arsenal, and then they, of course, have a moment of difficulty against Aston Villa and can't pull themselves out of it. So it's hugely significant. I don't doubt it. I mean, I've still, even if Liverpool had dropped points in this one, I still would have had them down to win the title because I think they've got the best underlying numbers. They already would still have had a lead as well of some sort, even though it would have been lessened. But you can't help but feel that it is that kind of sliding doors moment and that it's completely killed Arsenal's momentum or feeling that they can claw this back in any way because Liverpool have not now only got the best underlying numbers, they've got a lead. They've also got the ability to pull out last-minute winners out of nowhere. So it's really, really deflating for Arsenal. I think that might be the biggest kind of consequence of this win, really.
Yeah, it does feel like that. And we will get on to Arsenal in a certain instant just when we talk about wider football, because it'd be remiss not to mention that from this weekend, just to add that little perfect cherry on the cake. However, moving on to off-the-field matters, I'm going to actually take you back a little bit, David, to May the 22nd when we were doing these pods in the summer and there was no games. It was getting all ramped up. All the clue I'll give you is May the 22nd, LinkedIn. Any clue what I'm talking about?
Is it one of the roles they were kind of advertising for, maybe?
It was exactly that.
Yes.
The first team set piece coach as well. I mean, we watched this game and the amount of corners we wasted, and against Forest, I should say as well, that's important to mention. I just thought of this advert, and I know when it started the season, we had a few at the San Siro, didn't we? Like the Van Dijk header, the Ibu header, and Aaron Briggs we were told was going to keep it according to Honest Lot. We didn't need one. From what you've seen recently, surely a set piece coach is needed.
Yeah, I do wonder whether they'll get to the end of the season and think that's where they can get a little bit of a marginal gain somehow, because I do think you've seen it is a little bit of a weakness. One thing I would say, by the way, that deserves mention is that Liverpool don't concede from set pieces, and that is part of the role, an underrated part of the role, and Liverpool doing very, very well in terms of that this season. So we should give huge credit there because that is part of the same job as to, stop the goals and create them. So in terms of stopping goals from set pieces, they are proving very, very good. And I think you do have to give credit to Aaron Briggs and his staff for that. But yeah, in terms of creating goals, obviously they get one against Nottingham Forest and we're sat here moaning about it, which seems kind of mad, but it is right. They haven't scored enough over the course of this season to, for you to feel like it's a real threat. And it's just such a great source of kind of, free goals, really. I mean, we saw it so many times for Arsenal in recent seasons, haven't we? Like, they've had a game where they've got a couple, they've put themselves 2-0 up, and it's just opened up the game for them to score open play goals. And everyone's like, oh, they played fantastically there. But the key moment is the set piece. So, it would just be kind of nice if Liverpool could get a few more of those cheap goals. And I'm just looking at the Premier League stats for this season so far. 3 set piece goals for Liverpool, which is the 19th in the Premier League for it. Fulham the worst with 1. And then you go all the way up to the top, and Arsenal have got 10 and Aston Villa 9. So, it would just be such a nice way of getting some cheap goals if they possibly could. I mean, maybe it's a kind of case that it'll, ebb and flow, and maybe they'll go on a little run where they do get a few, but I still think it's an area they look like they could strengthen. I wonder if at the end of the season they will look into that and try and find someone, because it hasn't quite worked for them on the attacking side of things.
Yeah, we've almost seen the lot. Like you say, the Jota one aside, short to no one, straight into the keeper's arms. We did see the full repertoire on Saturday as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, sorry to but sometimes it's kind of the case as well that sometimes it's just the delivery is everything. I mean, I know that Arsenal, as much as they are top of that Premier League, I watched a few of their games recently for obvious reasons. They're having a real drop-off on set pieces in terms of their threat since Bukayo Saka's been out. He's got an unbelievable set-piece delivery on him, and I feel like they're really missing that at the moment. So, as much as it's kind of routines and finding blockers and finding ways to get Gabriel free, who's a really good header of the ball, sometimes it can just be down to having that bit of magic as well in terms of the delivery, and sometimes Liverpool's delivery isn't the best. Maybe the routines are good, but the delivery isn't. So, maybe it's not maybe a coaching issue. It's maybe more of a kind of personnel issue and how they deliver set pieces. And that's maybe something they have to work on or ask someone else to take them. We'll have to see. But it's, that's an interesting one. And I think, maybe getting Tsimikas on the pitch more frequently would be helpful, because I think he has possibly got the best set piece delivery out of any player in the squad. So I just think that's another facet that we maybe have to consider.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. You're probably right that you don't feel Liverpool are going to make any sort of appointment midway through the season, whether we'd like it or not. They'll probably run that till the end of this season. And tomorrow, this game, it's a weird one when we talk about Lille, because they're a decent side. They don't concede many. They're third. People will think of Jonathan David as, a threat to us. But we're pretty much guaranteed to qualify. Are you expecting mass rotation, or is just thinking that's not what Arne Slot does based on what we've seen?
Yeah, I don't expect rotation at all, to be honest. I think it's going to be maybe a couple of minor changes in a few obvious positions, but outside of that, probably not, to be honest. Because I think, you look at the Champions League table, and if Liverpool win and Barca slip up in any way, Liverpool will be through as having won the group stage, so to speak. So that's sort of an appeal. Obviously, winning the Champions League games is very lucrative as well. There's a few million on the table there for each game you win. And I just think, in terms of how the games are landing at the moment, he doesn't massively have to do anything anyway, and just kind of keep the rhythm going, and don't underestimate Lille. So, there's a few reasons for him really to not rotate in this one. And so, I don't expect it at all. I've seen that talk. But I really don't think there will be heavy rotation in this one. I can see 2 or 3 changes just because you can make a strong case for them. But I don't expect mass rotation at all.
Yeah, and a few are making the point in the chat that Lille are unbeaten in 21 matches. It was an interesting one because someone put it up. If you actually, and we're all getting used to these brand new Champions League rules and how it all works, but the top 2 teams are guaranteed to play the teams that win I think it's the 15th to 18th place playoffs, which you look at those teams now, they're not small names, but Liverpool would take a Sporting Lisbon type or a Monaco in the next round, no 2 ways about it. And any chance you think for maybe a Chiesa, Elliott, and Nunez, or just being honest, I think it's pretty much going to be full strength with 1 or 2 as just standard?
Yeah, I think definitely not Chiesa or Elliott. I just can't see them starting this, to be honest. But I can see a case where maybe a Jones starts to give one of the midfielders a rest. Maybe Nunez does come in for Diaz in that central role, and maybe that allows Diaz to go left, because I feel like Gakpo's played an awful lot recently. So maybe that allows Diaz to maybe go left-hand side and give him a rest and put Nunez there. And then obviously left back is kind of much of a much at the moment. He's just directly rotating those 2. So wouldn't be shocked to see a change there. So you're adding up to kind of 3 changes. Maybe he goes as far as 4, but I don't think you're going to see those real fringe players involved, because I just think this is an important game, and can put themselves in a really strong position to maybe seal top spot, which turns that PSV game into a complete dead rubber, doesn't it? Which would be fantastic. So I think that's how he's going to kind of approach it.
Will be interesting to see. And to be fair, Mo's made a comment there in the chat that I should put to you because I know you were at open training. Joe Gomez still working his way back, but there was no sign of Diogo Jota, was there?
Yeah, not a massively shocked because it's not, it's a fairly quick turnaround. If he's missing Brentford on the Saturday to have him back in training on the Monday, it's only a couple of days, isn't it? So not absolutely stunned. But, when I asked the manager about it in the press conference a couple of days ago, he said it's not going to be a long one. He doesn't expect him to be out for a while or anything. So, I'd still hope that we would have him back for the Ipswich game at the weekend, hopefully. And yeah, just another game's rest and he'll be ready for that one, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, yeah. If we can get him back as well, then the squad looks pretty healthy. And we finish as we always do, people, on wider football. And it's amazing how often we seem to be talking about the team in second for different reasons. But it's not even just the result, David. I mean, am I missing something? Has the handball rule changed in the last sort of 6 days or something? It's not even difficult to see, is it?
No, I couldn't believe there was even a debate about it online, particularly because some of the people seem to be sharing clips where you can just quite clearly see it hits his right arm and goes into the goal. So, yeah, incredible, really. And yeah, I think that's Arsenal fans just kind of feeling at the moment that everything's against them. And I was going to say I feel for them. That's not true at all. But, a few things have gone against them this season, hasn't there? A couple of strange red cards early in the season. Injury-wise, they have no control over that. And that is really going against them in the way it hasn't over the last couple of seasons. And they look at Man City dropping off and think this could have been our season. We could have been there. And that hasn't actually been the case. So, it must be extremely frustrating and must be a big reason why they're kind of going mad online, apparently. But yeah, they can't have any complaints for that one, that's for sure. That's not a weird refereeing decision. It was absolutely bang on. And I think, again, you just saw their frailties. They're not as good as defending as they have been in the last couple of seasons. They're 10 times worse than they have been in attack. Set-piece goals is kind of drying up a little bit as well now. So got an awful lot of problems, really. And Liverpool are absolutely capitalising on that.
Yeah. And I suppose that the question I wanted to finish on, and I actually tweeted and a few people commented on this. I don't know if we've done a deal with the devil this season or something like that, but we couldn't really have envisaged a campaign where maybe for Arsenal, people will take that differently, but City dropping so badly, Chelsea sort of nosying up to us and then just collapsing. And there's almost a sweetness at having to scroll down just to find certain rivals in 13th and below there, United and Everton, etc. It just feels like I'm touching wood as I'm saying this. A lot is going our way, but as well as we've earned it and as well as we played, a lot of things are going our way at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, you can't deny that. But I think Liverpool would be competitive in most seasons. I mean, look at the points tally, the fact they've lost one game, the fact that their underlying numbers look so great. And my thing is around this is that, you do need a little bit of luck sometimes to win the title. And people disregard that in seasons where Liverpool have gone, very, very close and missed out. That you do need a little bit of fortune on your side. And my thing is about Liverpool and generally kind of elite teams is the idea really, and it has been the case in recent years under FSG, is just get yourself in that mix as much as possible. And you give yourself a chance of this kind of thing happening, which is everybody falling apart around you and you steamroller in it, or, you're competing for it and maybe one of them goes your way. Liverpool have just been, if this is seen as lucky, I think Liverpool have been insanely lucky to only win one Premier League title in the last 10 years or so. When you think of the performances that they put in, the points totals they've had, even 13-14, it could have easily worked out in their favour and things could have fallen for them, but it didn't, unfortunately. 08-09, they could have got a bit luckier in that season as well. So, they were a very, very good side. So, if any club is earned this luck, if that is, there is some sort of luck there, then it's surely Liverpool. And the fact is, beyond the kind of the luck element of this, they have just been comfortably the best side. They've got the best attack in the league. They've got the best defence in the league, all the best underlying numbers as well. They're just a very, very good side. And I'm fully confident at this point now that they will go on and win the league. And I think, anyone who disagrees, you can't be allowed to be a hostage to your cowardice. Basically, you've got to look at the facts is that Liverpool are by every metric are the best team in this division, and unless they get some horrendous luck falling their way, they will go on and win this league. And I think we can be confident in saying that now. And as I say, they will absolutely deserve it. And I don't think luck will be talked about at the end. But if there has been any luck that has fallen their way, then they've earned it over the last 30 years or so in the Premier League where things haven't gone their way.
Yeah, I suppose I'm expanding on the final question I know here, but I've seen a few mention it, and even respected people in the industry like Ted Knutson, who I know you'll probably follow or read his work. I saw even he was in his piece saying, well, Liverpool at the start of the season had to ride it. It's like, no, we have consistently been the best team in this league, haven't we?
Yeah, and they've been consistently the best team in the games as well. I mean, the only ones they haven't is Nottingham Forest, where it kind of ended level on expected goals, and Forest pull a brilliant finish out the bag in the Anfield game. I mean, and Chelsea at Anfield as well, where again it kind of finishes even-ish on unexpected goals. Liverpool get a little bit dominated in terms of possession. Chelsea were very impressive in that game, but again, a draw might have been fair, but a defeat would have been very, very harsh. So. Yeah, I kind of disagree with that analysis. Actually, I felt like maybe kind of they have had slightly more points than their expected points total would look like in that period. But I also think in that case you could make the case really that Arsenal have also kind of had maybe more points than the performances have deserved, because I've seen them win some tight games this season where XG wise they shouldn't have, and they've been just very, very poor. So. For me, really, it's there's just no doubt whatsoever that Liverpool absolutely deserve to be where they are this season, and they will be deserving champions, which is what I expect to happen over the remaining games.
Yeah, fingers crossed we can all get behind that. And everything feels good at the moment. It's a great weekend. It's the perfect way to win. But exactly as you said, the treadmill just carries on, and it's Lille on Tuesday with no rest at all. So there we are, ladies and gents. All it leaves me to say as ever is, for the time, the analysis, and the insight, David, it is much appreciated.
No, thanks for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.